Okay, Chair, I can confirm you're live on YouTube.
Thank you, Georgia. Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of the Corporate Performance Panel meeting. Just to confirm, obviously we're live on YouTube now and also obviously live from Kings Lynn Town Hall. Democratic Services Officer will conduct a roll call for those present at the meeting, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bondi, not here at the moment. Councillor Blunt.
Present.
Councillor Collingham.
Present.
Had apologies from Councillor Jones. Councillor Coons, who is substituting for Councillor Spikings. Councillor Long.
Present.
Councillor Nash.
Present.
Councillor Osborne.
Present.
Councillor Rose.
Present.
Councillor Rives.
Present.
Councillor Sandal.
Present.
Councillor Sayers.
Present.
Had apologies from Councillor Spikings, and we're expecting Councillor Ware, who's substituting for Councillor Jones. Not here at the moment.
Yeah.
And we have portfolio holders, Councillor Morley
Here.
and Councillor Dewally.
Present.
I think that's everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you all, and especially thank you to those that are covering for others as substitutes. So Paul and Alexandra when she gets here. Next item we have to consider is the minutes of our meeting held. Apologies. Have I not done it? Well, we've kind of done apologies. Apologies as noted as per the roll call. I think is probably the best way to do it. So the minutes of the last meeting that we had are circulated on pages 5 to 9 of tonight's agenda. Are we all happy that they are a true record, and I'll sign those later on? Thank you very much. Becky, I said later on. I'll do it later on. That's all right. Any declarations of interest from members on items as presented, please? No items under standing order 7. I was going to say under the minutes, obviously the last meeting that we had, one of the items relating to the Kings Lynn Innovation Centre was dealt with in behind closed doors in closed session, and I've since subsequently spoken to Alexa's deputy and also Matthew Henry, who presented that report to us, and the understanding is now that that report doesn't contain anything that would be exempt, and so with guidance from Alexa, make sure I don't do anything wrong, my proposal to you all is that that document is released from being below the line and is lifted to above the line. But I'm looking to Alexa to check that they've got the correct with that. Yeah.
Somebody to propose that.
Yeah, it would be.
I'll propose that we accept that.
I'll second it.
Are we all in agreement with that? I mean, there was a discussion at the meeting. You did task me with going away and doing exactly that. So the conversation was had. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that if you are going into the public domain, will you just check that the asset, if you're going to put values in, will you just check that the asset value is the latest one that's been calculated for the statement of accounts? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we can do, but the report was as presented to the committee last time. So. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Next, members present pursuant to Standing Order 34. Don't believe we have any now. Chair's correspondence, I haven't had any, and we haven't had any call-ins to deal with as yet. So the first substantive item of business we have on the agenda is item 8, and that's the council tax support final scheme for working age people, and Joe Stanton, live here in person. Nice to see you.
Indeed. Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the final scheme for our working age people for council tax support for the coming financial year. It's part of the statutory process we have to go through each year to review and approve the scheme. We have put the draft scheme out to public consultation. That was agreed under a delegated decision. It went out to public consultation between August and September, and we received 8 responses that are summarised in the report. probably to be expected because the proposed scheme doesn't make any changes to the scheme that we have at the moment. So it's a continuation of the current scheme, which is the one that was made more generous from this April, so people can now receive up to full support with their council tax bill. The limit of money capital savings people can have was increased to £16,000. We brought the scheme into line with the National Scheme for Pension Age People. The financial implications of the scheme still continue to be within the projections within the financial plan. So it's really just for the panel to note the report. It goes as a recommendation onto Cabinet and then onto Council, which hopefully will go through November, and to agree that this proposed scheme is the one that goes through as the recommendation. Just take any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions, comments from members of the committee, please? It is what it was, Josh, so.
Yeah, I won't say much because obviously we discussed this quite a lot last year, but I thought, you know, the consultation was to be expected, I think, the decrease, but, you know, if you look at some of those responses, you can see there was only one person who actually used the scheme who did respond, but they talk about how it's helped them, and I think there'll be a lot of other people who have been helped by it, who you know, obviously aren't filling out consultations as most people obviously don't whenever we're consulting about anything. So I think, you know, there's no real reason to stop something that has been helping people, and I think if we also look at the, you know, consultation process, the Police and Crime Commissioner is content with continuation, and Norfolk County Council, which I can't remember the exact responses last year, but I think it's more supportive basically than it was last year, although that's probably just because we're continuing now rather than doing anything new. But yeah, I think we should definitely fully support this.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All I would say is obviously the changes or impacts on the budget of our organisation is obviously factored in, and we determine that. The knock-on impact to the county, the Police and Crime Commissioner and parish councils, etc., on what it does to the tax base is now embedded. Last year the change was made. This year it's going forward the same. It's not like they've got a surprise. It is what it is. And obviously for that reason, as Josh has said, I don't see any reason not to endorse it being as it is. The administration has made a decision that it wants to fully fund that particular benefit rather than partially fund that benefit. So are we all happy that that's a recommendation that moves forward, or have we got, oh, sorry, Councillor Morley, this is all your domain. I should have come to you as well.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, with all the furore about the winter payments being cancelled, I just wanted to say that everything's at band D in these reports, which Joe kindly compiles very accurately. But of course, there are twice as many actual residents or houses than the band D ones that actually take part in this. And people complain about the 300, but this is about 1,200 benefit to all of those people that qualify it. So it is a significant benefit that we're offering, and that should be recognised by everybody, and I think we should be pleased about it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, the original scheme did fully protect people over the age of 65, I believe. So there's been no change made as far as pensioners are concerned, but as you say, the worth of that benefit to a pensioner who receives the benefit is far in excess of the winter fuel payment, but they've already been receiving that, so or were traditionally receiving.
It's worth getting it into contact, Chair, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate your input. Thank you, Councillor Morley. So are we as a committee content that moves its way on through the process? Indeed, thank you very much. That's unanimous. Thanks, Joe. And the next item we have on our agenda, item 9, is the Q1 Corporate Performance Management Report. And we have Debbie S with us this evening. You going to present that one, Debbie?
Thank you, Chair. The performance report you see in front of you, the Q1 24-25, contains information on progress made against actions from the 24-25 annual plan and performance levels achieved for key performance indicators up to the 30th of June. In Q1, on the corporate strategy monitoring, the introduction of projects from the 24-25 annual plan has increased the number that we now monitor from 38 to 66, which is quite a large increase. However, this will reduce each quarter as projects are completed. We will see this pattern come and go as new annual plans are introduced during the administration. So we'll have quite a high number in the early quarters, and it will reduce as we get to the final quarter of that year. From the 66 projects included, some of them will carry on from the 23-24 plan because they're long-term projects. So we have to keep monitoring them, and as you'll see, they've got the RAG ratings in there, so it will allow you to see the rise and fall of those projects if they're on target, slightly below, or we need more attention. With Q1, we've actually seen 37 of the key actions for the corporate strategy are on track. 9 have minor issues or delays, and 8 have been completed. We've removed the RAG ratings. SLT agreed at their last meeting to remove the RAG ratings from the 12 actions, which we do in partnership with others. And we're now going to carry on providing that information for progress on an information-only basis. I've also added some charts this time because as the more data we gather, we can actually show you more as a comparison quarter on quarter. So hopefully this will aid the members with their knowledge on key KPIs. We've also included the trend arrows for both the projects and the KPIs, so you can keep a closer eye on the movement from the previous quarter to the current quarter. Any without an arrow just means that they're new for 24-25, and then in Q2 we will start to see the trend arrows introduced. For this quarter, the KPIs were 77% have met or exceeded their targets, and 23% have not. From that 23%, 8 missed the target by more than 5%, and 3 indicators by less than 5%. We tasked SLT to go through the monitor-only indicators, and that piece of work has now been completed. So we've now reduced the monitor-only indicators from 21 to 13. Of the 13 that remain, majority of them are volume indicators, which still provide key data, i.e. fly tipping, spend on B&B, number of RUS sleepers. But they are hard to actually put a target on them when we're trying to see and react to that volume coming into us. On the final page on the organisation indicators, at the last CPP meeting I came to, it was requested that we put some more indicators on temporary staff, and we've now included those, and they'll be in the report going forward. I aim to bring the Q2 report to the next meeting in November, so we'll get a better flow. So there won't be such a gap, but I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Debbie. Committee members, first off, any questions regarding the performance data as presented? Josh first.
Can I just ask on the sort of report to cabinet section, so page 26 of our agenda pack, when it says the number of actions to be monitored is increased from 38 to 66, and then in the next paragraph it's talking about 64 indicators, is the number of actions monitoring different from the indicators, or is it, because 64 and 66, are they meaning different things, or is it a mistake? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm we've got projects and key actions from the corporate strategy, and then we have the cohort of indicators, which shouldn't vary that much once we've set them for the year, and then we'll review them fresh for the following year.
Councillor Ives.
Thanks, Chair. I didn't see any indicators on homelessness. Is that something we monitor?
B&Bs.
The actual indicator, I was going to say, there's nothing, there's the homeless strategy in the actual corporate strategy monitoring. We are looking at that and that's been renewed. But as for actual KPIs, we've got, starting with reference 4.1 is the number in bed and breakfast and the spend on B&B. So there's a group of indicators from 4.1 to 4.4, but we have reduced them considerably compared to what we used to report on as a recommendation from the peer review to try and reduce the number from volume to do the high level indicators. But that should cover the.
Yeah, it's just me misreading the form. Sorry about that. And the other thing I did look at, sorry,
No,
is 3.6. The plan to reduce revenue expenditure by 5%. And we appear to have achieved nothing.
0 at the moment, yes. If it follows the pattern like it was for the previous year, it all came in the last quarter. So we are still monitoring, but I don't know if Councillor Morley wants to.
I'm sure you'll have some words of wisdom to set my mind at rest.
That's a question I would like to advance information on. But yeah, we set the target a little late through the year, and so it was a bit difficult to say that we were going to collect 5%. We were originally going 10%, then 5%, then we went 2.5%. And to be fair, we weren't collecting that until we did a kind of a management edict or an operational edict, I suppose, really, and say, top sliced the budgets to ensure that we got it. And so we should be on track for that. But rest assured, we have a cost management reduction strategy, which is in force forcibly. Thank you.
so can I just ask a supplemental to you, Chris? Is that across all revenue spend, or does that include salaries? Or just other spend excluding salary?
Well, exclude salaries. It's a question of other spend, and obviously there's a limit to how much you can do on that as well. And so it's against those with the largest budgets and which have more flexibility with it, and also to cut down the subsidisation of areas as well. So it's certainly not people at the moment, but obviously if you look at other areas, you'll see that Becky will confirm this, that we have quite a number of vacancies, which we don't want to fill with a great deal of relish, but obviously that contributes to the overall reduction in costs of the council.
Becky, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, just to inform the panel that senior leadership team is undertaking work in relation to reviewing budgets actively ahead of a Cabinet Away Day, which is in November, where Cabinet will receive an update on that work. So it is something that's actively being looked at. And in response to Councillor Morley's point, looking at vacancies is something we're also doing going forward.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Collingham, Judy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little confused, not for the first time. Are we looking at the report in its entirety or just the first part? Because I mean, all the detail of the report, I'd like to comment on a number of issues there. I suppose, is that okay, Chair?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I
think
suppose
dealing with it in its entirety as far as it goes.
I suppose the one that sticks out amongst many others is the new homes delivery, which does seem pretty alarming to me, particularly in view of the government's declared intention that we should build more homes. I know I always ask these sorts of questions, and I know there's not really very much you can actually do about it, but I do think that's one to be flagged. You know, we are way below target. I wondered if you had a comment on that, or well, I'm on page. Well, I'm never quite sure.
1.9.
1.9,
1.10,
yeah.
1.11. Yeah.
Yes,
I was going to say, does Aaron still want to? Well, I was just going to reassure that with 1.10 and 1.11, the new homes built through the council scheme, the target for Q2 has been met. So we weren't expecting to achieve anything in the first quarter, but we have got 23 homes for both of those indicators. But the 1.9, it is slightly out of our control, fortunately. But like I say, unless Alistair would like to say anything, Leader.
Yes, by all means, Leader.
I think it's a very important point to flag. As it as the report notes, most of the delivery is outside of our control. As you'll know, Chair, this council over a number of administrations has intervened in the market and delivered some 810 homes, or that'll be when the existing sites are built out, and there'll be proposals will be looked at to continue that. We've plucked the low-hanging fruit, if you like, the council-owned sites, but there appears to be scope for the council to continue to have a presence in the market. But you're absolutely right. It is a concern, and given that the housing targets are more or less doubled, as we just heard, this is a point that we are making to our MPs, that if we are to have these housing targets, there does need to be intervention by central government. There's quite a report put forward recently, I think it was by Savills, that rarely have the numbers been met without a significant proportion of those homes being government funded. In the 50s, when we built more homes than we do now, fully a third were council houses. Well, that's just not happening. So all we can do is propose and try and influence. It does inform a wider question of some of the RAG ratings. It's quite right that they're flagged up. Some of them we can't control. This is one of them. But it's useful to stimulate the sort of response that we should be giving as a council in infrastructure. If you want us to deliver this, we need support. We need infrastructure, and particularly in the town area and around the South Gates and areas like that, where there's heavy remediation needed, that there's funding available, because you can't have it's all very well announcing targets. You have to enact the policy that enables us to do so. So that's what we're doing, is saying, if you want us to do this, you need to enable us to do it.
Yeah, I think we would all have experienced exactly that, and agree that some sites are very easy to bring forward in very affluent areas, and they will get built out commercially. But if you, as you say, building out on land which is previously contaminated, or brownfield sites with debris that has to be removed and so on, it's going to cost money. We've always received funding from Homes England, but the ask is, as you say, getting harder, because you say low-hanging fruit, but I mean, some of that land has been developed out in the last 10 years, has been vacant land in the last 40. So, it's been there and available to years and years worth of administrations. And actually, most of what's getting built out now, the okay was given 5, 10, however many years ago. I've got Councillor Collingham. Judy, you want to come back? And then I've got Councillor Coombs.
Point of clarification. Thank you very much, Leader. That's why I asked the question, because I think that we're being asked to do the well-nigh impossible with no resources, and I don't quite see how the circle is to be squared. So thank you for the response. That's what.
Councillor Coombs.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree that it does need central government help. A lot of we've got 2 large estates that have passed planning permission all the way through. They're just not being built because the builder doesn't think he can sell them, and it's problems getting mortgages. So if central government could do something to assist mortgages, I mean, when we were younger, you could easily get 100% mortgage, and in some cases 110% mortgages. Now, you have to put a 10% deposit down, and people can't afford it. So if they could tackle that problem, I think you would see an awful lot of houses move very, very quickly, and that's something the government could do.
Yeah, I quite agree, Paul. I've got Councillor Blunt and I've got Councillor Sales.
Yeah, it's very easy for us to deliver planning applications and put the numbers on the table. It's very difficult for us to convert them into houses. We were lucky to be able to do that in the ones that were our own development, and we've been living on that for the last few years. My real concern is actually the implications of us failing, because as well as us being told we've got to deliver those numbers, we were responsible for housing delivery tests. And the implication of that is that we could lose the right to make decisions. And that's very significant. I think if any of you read the consultation document that the Cabinet was approved from the local plan task group that went to the part of the consultation, it strongly suggested this was not possible. And I think it's not possible in so many reasons. And not least, actually, is the resources it would take for us as a borough council to deliver, regardless if we had the sites, etc. The amount of work we're going to have to do to double the number of planning applications that have to be processed and actually monitor and complete those, get those through the process or to a point where they pass this housing delivery test, I think it's nearly impossible. I'm not sure where we're going on this one, if I'm honest. You've got to hope that somebody changes their mind.
They'll probably realise that it's not deliverable about 4.5 years from now. Councillor Sayers, you're next, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to take a steer away from housing targets, if I may, and point attention to the food waste collected and mixed recyclable collected. My question is Q1 for both seem to be on target to meet last year's achieved recyclings, but the target for the year, this year, seems to be somewhat elevated. Are those targets over ambitious, or is that an achievable target and it's going to be coming in Q2, Q3? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The targets that are outlined in the report are the targets that have been agreed with the Assistant Director and the Service Manager, along with the portfolio holder. We are, within the performance team, we are given those targets to report against, and they're the ones the portfolio holder and the Assistant Director believe are achievable. Nobody wants to set out targets that they don't think is achievable. We do look for continuous improvement going forward. So you would want to set a challenging target. And there has been a lot of work undertaken over the past 12 months within food waste collections and recycling. So certainly we want them to be challenging, but those are the ones that have been put forward by the people responsible for delivering that service and that they believe are achievable. So that's where the background to that is. Thank you, Chair.
Is that okay, Councillor Sayers? Councillor Nash on.
Sort of touching on the point that Councillor Sayers has made on page 49 and 2.1, total tonnage of mixed recycling collected. I think we had this discussion back in March of this year, and 15,500 tonnes is, I think we discussed then, was a fairly meaningless number because it doesn't actually reflect the percentage of there's no figure here for the overall general waste that's thrown away. So there's no comparative figure for if 15,500 tonnes. That could be more than the black bin and the green bin combined when looked at in the borough. At which point 15,500 tonnes is completely unrealistic and doesn't give us an indication of what percentage of what we're throwing away is actually being recycled. And I was under the impression we were going to relook at that figure and convert it to a percentage and include the general waste and include the general waste figure, which is available somewhere, I've no doubt. So we've got a comparison. If you can see a change in the comparison, then you can see that it's a benefit. But just to put an arbitrary 15,500 tonnes, it's completely unrealistic and doesn't actually show any of the detail.
I think Councillor Nash is right. I mean, back in the day, it was a percentage of all material arisings to be recycled. And, you know, I remember it being as long ago as when it was 18%, you know, and it sort of increased and increased and increased as the years went by. And you drive a sort of limit to where you can get to with what you currently collect, unless people start drinking more and they put glass in the recycling that weighs heavy. And actually that, you know, or anything else that goes into the recycling that weighs heavy. And I've, you know, glass just sprung to mind as it's heavy. But you're absolutely right. A percentage figure, you know, 100% is the total waste arisings, of which 42.5 or 44 or whatever it might be got recycled. And actually that figure is somewhat skewed by garden waste, because garden waste is technically recycling, but it's a separate waste stream to the normal domestic waste arisings that we had. So again, we can do that on tonnage of collected, but I think a percentage figure would be helpful. And I'm sure those stats are only a few presses on a calculator if you know the total waste arisings and how much of it is being recycled.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's a really good question and absolutely right. The figure on its own is completely meaningless unless you've got a total. So I'm assuming you're after the black bin total weight of what goes in the black bins and then against what's recycled. Are you including food within that, or are you taking that separately?
Food waste is by definition recycled.
Yes.
You know, we get waste recycling credit on food waste.
Yes.
So it is recycling.
Yeah, okay. So yes, I agree. It's a good question, Chair, and I apologise if you asked for it back in March and we haven't included that. I'm sorry, that must have slipped through the net, but we will bring that back to you when we come for Q2 in November.
Excellent. Simon, do you want to come back?
Perhaps if we had a figure for everything that's thrown away, all the tonnages of everything from 2.6 going through to 2.1, with then a percentage for our targets, would that seem to be a good idea?
If you could drop exactly what you've just said in an email to me, I'd be grateful. Then I can make sure that we can collect that data for you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I think if our waste and recycling manager Barry was here, he would, you know, I think they have to record all those figures anyway, and it's just the way that they're being presented to us here, I think is.
I'm sure he would be able to reel them off on the top of his head, absolutely, but I'm going to need to ask the question.
No, that's exactly right. But no, it's a very valid point. We've got the leader wanting to come back, and then I've got Councillor Collingham. Is that on that? It's on that point regarding the waste arising.
Yes, of course, Chairman. It's just on that point in the comment. It's a point well made. Can I suggest that actually the targets are set on that basis exactly as you've described, and they've come to a tonnage. They're set as a challenging target at a level that's an appropriate recycling rate for a borough of our nature. As you're far more expert at all this than I am. So if it's all right with the committee, what I suggest we do is ask the recycling manager to present the figures in that way, rather than you prescribing it and he think, well, that's a bit of an odd way to do it. He is asked to present a meaningful target in the way that he presented the underlying data for this target to be calculated. It's on the basis that it's challenging. It's not politically convenient. It could be set at that level, as you know, or we can achieve that. It's set at the level this is what we should be striving to do. I think it's a point well made by a number of councillors on this committee, and as the officers have said, we'll do that. But just to the nuance would be that I'd suggest you ask the recycling manager to present it in a meaningful way rather than prescribing it. If you're happy with,
yeah, and I'm open to suggestions on how that best gives the committee an easy understanding of what we are achieving. And when it was a straight percentage, this much of our waste, this is the tonnage of waste collected, this much is recycling, this much was waste. Simple, you know, it's absolutely simple. Is that fair, Simon? Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, thank you. That clarifies my point precisely. Thank you.
Excellent. And then I've got Councillor Collingham.
It's going to add to the debate, really. I mean, it's meaningless to talk about a reduction in glass, isn't it? For instance, it might mean that people are drinking less. It might mean that previous comparisons were at Christmas or the New Year or something. So without some kind of comparative figure, it just doesn't mean anything at all.
No, exactly.
And I can only concur with Councillor Nash and everybody else's comments, so.
I think.
And it is very important, but I didn't understand how providing a free caddy liner would make any difference. That did defeat me, because I thought we didn't need to have bespoke caddy liners anymore to recycle our stuff. At least in our household, we're not using it, so.
You're right, no, that's not the case anymore. So I'm not able to respond to that because I'm not quite sure on it, but because you don't need the specific liners anymore, you can use it, yeah.
No, I think nationally there has been some work done that says if you provide a free caddy liner, you get a bit better uptake from people who were probably reticent about food waste recycling. But Paul's nodding his head. He was a more recent environment portfolio person than myself. But you know, if you make it easier for people, they're more likely to do it. But actually, you know, you don't want food waste arising. You want people to use up leftovers and whatever. But there's, you know, so that actually you're looking for a decreasing figure, but also a decreasing weight in the residual waste, because when the analysis was done back in the day, food waste was one of the heavy items that was still in the bin that we decided all those years ago to take out and have a separate collection. It would have been far cheaper not to have separated it up and not have just put it in the black bin, but we chose to take it out because environmentally it's the right thing to do. You don't want rotten cabbage leaves mixed in with all your other residual waste. Councillor Sayers.
Just a add-on to the conversation about recycling. This week is Recycling Week and it's being publicised by the council. I did email Barry today about this topic. We discussed which communities would be less likely to recycle, and he identified what he's named Acorn Groups 4 and 5, which would be those that are less affluent with time and family pressures. And I'll maybe challenge us to think about ways that we can, as a council, help those family types, that demographic, to recycle more. I know that's the intent of this recycling week, but let's make it a long-term endeavour to reach out to those.
The biggest jumps that we saw in amounts recycled was when we renegotiated the MRF material recycling facility contract and told them in no uncertain terms that we wanted extra materials included in the basket that we would recycle. And that's when glass got put in and certain plastics got added and so on. And a quick win is to look at what that facility can do and whether there's additional things we could put in the recycling rather than the residual waste and drag that out of the waste stream totally. But that's a job really for the Environment and Community panel. I think that will be their bag rather than ours. But
I said it purely for the record.
But it's absolutely important that we discuss these figures, that if we, as we have done, strayed into an area which is really another panel, that at the joint meeting that the chairs of the panels have together, that is one of the things that's brought on the radar of ENC, because actually it is some time since we last looked at what that basket of materials could be and what they can deal with at the MRF. And since then, obviously, supermarkets have got plastic bag collection facilities that will take films and plastic film and so on. So the world of waste and recycling is evolving, definitely since my time and involvement. And if this committee kicks off the idea and passes it over to ENC, I'm sure they would like to run with it. Any further comments or questions about the report as presented? Josh.
Thank you. On the actions carried out in partnership with others, this is the information only. So page 37 of the agenda pack talks about engagement with schools and colleges and talking about the West Norfolk Primary Heads Network. I was just wondering if much work is done with the borough's secondary schools. I'm obviously aware this is very much in partnership with others because, we're not Norfolk County Council in terms of education responsibility. But is there much work being done in a similar sort of vein to that West Norfolk Primary Heads Network on a secondary level?
Chair, I'm going to defer to Becky Box for that.
Becky Box.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've only ever done presentations to junior schools. I've never been to secondary school to start doing recycling presentations, but there we go. Well, yeah.
In response to that question, the engagement with the secondary schools is quite limited these days. Historically, there was a county council network of secondary heads in West Norfolk that we attended. Over the COVID time, that fell away. The West Norfolk Primary Heads Network is a group that I actually set up about 6-7 years ago, and that has continued, and that's very well attended. And we provide a lot of support and a forum for primary heads in West Norfolk. The secondary head engagement we're doing now, where we're trying to kind of remake those connections, is really through careers and provision of careers advice and support and work experience opportunities, those types of things, where there's a real need from the schools for those types of placements. But these days, I don't think the schools are networking quite the same way that they used to in the past.
Councillor Collingham, Judy.
I'm now looking at the end of the report. If I may, 53, page 53, our organisation. I think I bring this up almost every time I see this report. I am concerned about the number of long-term sick. You won't be surprised to hear me say that. It's quite a high figure, really, against the proportion, the number of people that we employ. And you suggest that it's because they have difficulty accessing medical attention. That in itself is a worry. I personally believe that we have to do everything we can to get long-term sick people back into work, because you don't want people being depressed and at home, and you don't want any malingering. I wonder if we have any idea of the nature of the long-term sickness. That's perhaps drilling down too far and too personal, but is this, for instance, long-term COVID, or do we have any idea why people are unable to return to work?
I should imagine that'll be Becky, that is the expert on such matters.
Yeah, we will ask Becky to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the range of long-term sickness absence cases are quite varied. There are no cases of long COVID. There is a mix of people who are absent due to issues with their mental health, but also within the past year, there's been staff who've had broken limbs, cancer treatment, heart attacks. I think we had 3 employees who had heart attacks and were off for long-term sickness because of that. So it is quite a broad range. What I would say is we're very proactive about managing long-term sickness and engaging and maintaining contact with those employees who are off for a longer period of time. But often there are periods of recuperation that are required because of the nature of the absence. Sometimes there are delays with accessing treatment and getting appointments, so that can contribute to the length of absence. But if we do have employees that are experiencing that type of situation, we do look at whether there are other things we can do to support them. We regularly refer people who are on long-term sick to occupational health services, so that we have up-to-date information on their situation and what we might be able to do to help facilitate their return to work. So it is an ongoing and active management of those long-term sickness absence cases, but often it is just that people need to get well enough to return to work.
Thank you. It's very good to hear. Thank you for the very full response.
So if there are no, I haven't seen any further hands, but I just have one for possibly a question for Councillor Diwali, who's and that is there's a new project gradually, as we heard, we're adding to the list of what performance monitoring we will have, one of which is to upgrade street lighting and other council assets with any energy efficient LED lighting. And I just wondered what the quantum of that was, because I would have thought that that's been an ongoing project for as many years as I can remember, that we've been changing to. I mean, we're sitting in a very ancient room here, and all the bulbs look like they're the modern eco type, even if they're meant to look like old-fashioned candles. So I just wondered what the quantum was of what we've got still to do, because it does seem to be we've been changing light bulbs to eco for a very long time.
Thank you, Chair. Forgive me, I am, as we speak, chasing this one up for my cabinet report to full council. I'd like to, may I come back to you in writing on this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just, you know, whether we're just sort of dealing with the last remaining dregs of lights that have been awkward because of their design or whatever whatever it might be. But it seemed to me we've been LED upgrading for ages. And the economics of it, and forget about saving the planet, the economics of it are phenomenal. When I know parish councils that have borrowed money, changed all their lights to LED, and effectively the payback on the saving on the electricity pays for brand new lights, pays because they've got no maintenance contract, and they've got a brand new asset. And the payback time is 18 months, 2 years. So, you know, it depends on the fitment, but we really ought to be seeing these all out, and everything ought to be super efficient. Honour, the company itself.
If I come back, Chair,
Yes.
I'm keen on the investor say, can you just clarify, do you want within the corporate estate or street lighting or both?
Well, the item that we have as presented to us is worded as upgrade street lighting and other council assets. Because I read that as other councils' assets. I thought, well, what are the councils? But no, it's our council assets. So it's in its entirety. But I mean, streetlights ought to be an easy win, but so ought to be changing bulbs, you know, around our buildings into things that are eco-friendly. Honour, you've got.
I was just going to say that Oliver will answer this question for you.
Oliver's checked. No, you're not changing light bulbs.
I won't. I can't give the quantum, so the number, but just to put it in perspective, there are street lights where columns are due to be changed and that sort of thing going forward. So rather than change the bulb and then go back and change the column where you've got a new one going in, we're working through those to make sure that we're doing it in the most efficient way. And I think the same with buildings. I mean, I would hope the majority are now moved across to that. But what you do is part of your maintenance schedule, just make sure that you're upgrading as you go through, rather than taking things out and putting them in, unless it's more economically advantageous to do so.
Excellent, thank you. I look forward to the update on that as we progress and see what the stats look like. I've got Councillor Rives next, please.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to say, I was looking at the information on small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, and it doesn't seem to really tell me very much. In fact, it doesn't tell me anything at all.
Sorry, could I just ask which page you're on, please, Councillor Wright?
Is it note 1.19?
Thank you.
17 on mine, but
little 17, big 48.
Right.
1.9.
So if I was looking at that, I might say, well, what's the value of these contracts as within the context of all the contracts we place? How many contracts are there? What's the average value of the contract placed?
So what you're saying is it's a bit like the waste. So you've got a figure, but you don't have anything to tell you. Right, okay. I'll take those comments
The only way
back.
it means something is it compares to a figure of 70%.
Yeah, okay. If you can leave that with me, I will I'll have a look
I
at
mean,
it for you.
it's welcome to note that 70% of our contracts are placed with SMEs, but how many contracts is that based on value? Is
It's
that based
a value
on
and a
number of
percentage.
contracts?
It would be more meaningful if we provided both. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, we come back to the portfolio holder for finance, Councillor Morley.
And procurement, I might
And
add.
procurement, of course, yes.
I think there has been a move to try to award business to local enterprises, small or medium. And under the new procurement act, there is more emphasis on purchasing managers knowing their community of businesses and market engagements, and encouraging SMEs to come forward and bid for works rather than us just put something out and hope that they bid for it. So there is there is a need for this indicator, and it will be more meaningful as time goes on. So I think I think we'll keep it on the register, but yeah, if you want more explanation about it, then I'm sure we're happy to do that. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. No further comments or questions? Oh, leader, sorry.
Well,
He's took his glasses off. That normally means something's happening.
No,
Alistair, over to you.
No, I think that it would be helpful to have both measures, because don't forget some of the major contracts which would skew the percentage by value are never going to be awarded to SMEs. So if you have both percentage by value, you can, well, why is this lower? Because there may have been a major contract awarded that was never going to go to an SME. So I would suggest that both numbers have a value to you in total number as a percentage, which is what you've got currently, gives you an indication of the determination that Councillor Morley has just alluded to, that if these can be awarded to SMEs, they are. I think that's quite important. And then you can use a comparative between the two figures to dig deeper, should you choose to. But if this report includes all that detail from the outset, I think we'll need a few more trees chopped down, or a few more terabytes of storage. But as Councillor Morley has just indicated, if there is a wish to dig deeper, that information is there. But I'd suggest those two indicators are what may be of interest to you.
Yes, yeah, and I absolutely can see that. Councillor Robinson, you're happy with that?
Well, it leads to another question, really, I'm afraid, which is that, what's the economic efficiency of using SMEs? And are we likely to be in a situation where we're paying more money for contracts because we're deciding to favour SMEs? And should we think about measuring that? Or am I just dancing on the head of a pin?
I would suggest we still have to go through the procurement process, but we make the system easy for SMEs to get involved and bid and hopefully win the work because they're small and competitive. Councillor Morley, you're
okay, I think Alexa wants to pop in, but I just want to say, I mean, I don't want to go to too much spurious information here. Market engagements are also trying to get SMEs to link up with the prime contractors, so that the prime contractors have local SMEs. And essentially, it's the gross domestic product of the area. So it increases jobs in the area, it doesn't increase wealth, it increases health and a whole range of stuff. So, you know, how far do you want to go on this? So I think you just want to, rest.
Alexa, you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I'll just address the point because it does actually touch on one of the key changes in the procurement regime, which is that they are moving away from the most economically advantageous tender to the most advantageous tender process. So central government is literally saying to us, you don't just have to take money into account. You know, there are those kind of corporate strategy type priorities that we can try to achieve and prioritise and put into the evaluation process, like social value and the SMEs work, which we can award marks and criteria towards going forwards in the new regime.
Helpful, and actually a little bit later on in the agenda, when we're looking at the forward work programme, we'll mention the work of the taxi testing group, which has sort of concluded its business today, and that we were looking at those, you know, how contracts were awarded and those very changes that you just made reference to. So that's all squares the circle somehow. Excellent. I don't see any further hands up. Thank you all for your. Oh, Josh.
Sorry, because I only just sort of saw these figures. So because this is on that page, so 17 or 48, depending on which one you're looking at. With the 1.17, 1.18, is there a reason why the target for this year is quite a lot below the 23-24 figures for the long stay car parking tickets issued or purchased, and the short stay, because obviously the targets are, you know, as you say, meant to be they're sort of, you know, meant to be achievable and everything like that. But is there the reason why those are lower than the previous year?
Yes, they sit well below 23-24 figures. any thoughts on how they were arrived at, please?
They were the projections of the assistant director and the portfolio holder. I can go back to get some more explanation if that is required. It could be around events, it could be many different variables that they look at when they are making these projections. But I'm happy to ask the question and to email a response to the panel if the panel
Yes, that would be helpful, Honor, if you could please, because, you know, when last year we achieved over 1 million short stay parks, and we're now predicting 15% less than that. I mean, 15% would be a huge hit to the local economy if 15% less people came into the town over a 12-month period. Those people generally come into town for a reason, not least to help drive the local economy. So if there's some thoughts and rationale behind why they're on the downward spiral, that would be helpful to know.
I will ask the questions and advise the panel accordingly. Chair, thank you.
It might be that historically the predictions and numbers were around the 850,000. We absolutely done well last year, and we had a good time, and more people came in than expected. So it'd be good to know. Right, with that, thank you all for your input on that item. We'll move on to our next item, which is item 10, and our work programme starts.
Recommendations.
Oh, we've got some recommendations. Have we got recommendations to Cabinet on to note the report and agree that they go on to Cabinet? Recommendation panel is requested to consider the report and make any appropriate recommendations to Cabinet. I don't think we've got any recommendations to make to Cabinet that have come forward thus far. You want a recommendation, do you, Chair of Cabinet?
No, if I may, Chairman, I mean, you've made some recommendations to the changes in the way the data is presented. If you want that to be captured, that may be helpful.
Yes, well, I've taken them as noted. The fact that we've spoken about them have been noted. Councillor Nash, do you want to add anything to them?
I'll propose the changes to the waste element of it if someone wants to second it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I said I'd take all of those that we've spoken about as noted. There was no dissent saying, oh, no, you shouldn't be looking at the percentages, you should be looking at the tonnages. So, you know, I've taken all those as read. But if the committee are in agreement, those recommendations that we've had through tonight's discussions to be included, I request that they're included. Obviously, it's down to Cabinet what they include, but you can see the logic behind it, hopefully, all the ones that have been discussed about.
Absolutely, Chairman, which is why I'm keen that it's not just noted that you are making recommendations.
I'll second that, let me, Brian.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, are we all in agreement with that? Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much for that. Then I will go on to the work programme, which starts on page 54. Although that's all stuff that we've done. And just to remind folks, we have got an additional meeting in on the 30th of October, which is when we will deal with the additional report of the Constitution Informal Working Group. And that was deliberately put as a one-item agenda because it will probably be quite a weighty meeting because there's quite a few changes and a lot of work has been done by the Constitutional Working Group. And then on to November's meeting when we should see that report from the Taxi Testing Informal Working Group, which as I said concluded earlier on this afternoon. Any other items that people would like to consider or for consideration by the committee to be added to the programme? Councillor Nash, Simon.
Yes, come to my attention that the process of holding statutory officers to account is not fit for purpose. So 9 years after that was brought in by legislative regulations, we still find ourselves in a position where we can't rely on, or not just us, but the public can't rely on that process to follow a workable process, if you like. So that needs discussing with some urgency, I feel, because we are in the absence of that, we are in fact in breach of those regulations.
Okay, well, I think what I will do on that is after the meeting take soundings as to how we would do that. I would suggest that the whole organisation that ought to have that process in place, not just this panel. Whilst we do policy development, I think I need to probably speak to the leader in one of the meetings when we get together and work with officers' advice on how we bring that in, because that sounds like we will need a full report on how we will integrate that into the way that we operate going forward. Anything further? No, in which case, as I did suggest, the next meeting we've got is this extra meeting on the 30th of October. Thanks everybody for your attendance and input tonight. Councillor Morley, is that a late extra time goal that you're now going to score for us? Councillor Morley.
Just in time for the last waltz. The 27th of November, I've got in my diary a procurement presentation to CPP. Doesn't seem to be here. Unless Alexa has changed the programme.
Yeah, cabinet reports which fall within the remit of the panel. I think that comes into that one. So it shouldn't get missed, but it will be in the mix with all the other committee chairs when we have our pre-meet with our other committee chairs to make sure that we don't miss that one that should be coming this way. But thank you. And with that, I'll say meeting closed. Thank you all.